So the first bill I'm going to call is House Bill 7704, sponsored by Chairwoman Williams, an act related to criminal offense, commercial and sexual activity. It grants immunity to any person engaged in or witnessing commercial sexual activity if they report the offense to law enforcement and in good faith attempt to assist in the investigation of offense, even if later withdraw their cooperation. Chairwoman Williams, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, if you would like to explain the mix-up, or if you prefer me to do so, I will do so.
I will take a swing at explaining it. Last year, this bill was introduced by Chairwoman Williams. She wanted to reintroduce it this year. Ledge Council took a look at the bill and made changes to it. Changes that make this bill before us tonight inconsistent with the bill last year and inconsistent with what the intentions of the sponsor was. Have I got that correct?
You're right on it.
And so, without any, long explanation of, it was actually done in good faith by Ledge Council. So they will prepare what we call Substitute A. For those that don't know, we amend the bill and we call this bill, when it's amended, a Substitute A. And that bill will be brought back to the committee for a vote as a Substitute A with the appropriate language that reflects your intention, Chairwoman Williams, as to what you wanted to accomplish by this piece of legislation. I hope that's an explanation that accurately reflects our mutual understanding of what happened.
You did an excellent job, and I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. 7704, in its original intent, would grant immunity to people engaged in commercial sexual activity if they report to law enforcement that they are victim of or witnesses to a crime. This act would ensure that they feel safe in coming forward to report crimes and are able to report exploitation or violence committed against others. This applies if the individual reports the crime to a criminal law enforcement agency, seeks or receives health care services as a result of the crime, or assists or attempts to assist in the investigation or prosecution of the crime. If the victim or witnesses later withdraw cooperation due to safety concerns, physical or emotional health, or any other reason, the victim or witness shall not be charged. Most of these individuals are victims themselves of horrendous crimes, and we must not penalize them for reporting crimes done to them or committed in their presence. If we truly want safe streets that are free from trafficking, exploitation, and pain, we must incentivize these workers to feel safe and free enough to report crimes that they may witness or be taken advantage of.
Any questions for the sponsor? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The third bill I want to talk about is 7704, which is Representative Williams' bill dealing with immunity for sex workers. We strongly support that legislation. Representative Williams, I think, did a great job explaining what the bill was about, why it's important. We agree it needs a sub-A because the way that the bill as it came up was worded doesn't actually do what it's intended to do. But we hope that the committee will give favorable consideration to the sub-A.
Which brings me to 7704, sponsored by Chairwoman Williams, an act related to commercial sexual activity. Melissa Brodo is here, and Rebecca Clary is also going to testify, and Steve Brown left, so I don't think he has anything he wants to say. You can go up there and sit behind her. Thanks. Melissa, the floor is yours.
Good
to see
evening.
you again.
Yes, nice to see you again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for hearing testimony on this. I know it's been a long night. I'll be very brief. My name is Melissa Bruto. I'm a longtime attorney and advocate for sex workers and survivors of human trafficking. I am the co-director of the New York City-based SOAR Institute. I've spent most of my legal career doing direct representation of sex workers and survivors of trafficking. The reason that this bill that I know Representative Williams spoke about many hours ago, which would grant immunity to people that come forward and report a crime committed against them or a crime that they witnessed, and they would not be arrested for prostitution, it's so incredibly important. During all of my years doing direct representation, I had so many clients come to me who've been raped, assaulted, otherwise violated, and wouldn't consider reporting to law enforcement. Or if they did, it was with tremendous fear and trepidation. They weren't believed. And they, most importantly, what this seeks to address is that they had the possibility of being arrested themselves because you're going and admitting that you committed a crime. And this bill, is incredibly important. My colleague will speak about all of the other states that are either considering or passing comparable laws. But it really makes clear that violence and assault against anybody, especially those who are incredibly marginalized and vulnerable to assault, is never acceptable, right? And that we really want to make sure that everyone can stay safe. And this is something that I would hope law enforcement can get behind, right? It makes their job easier. We really want to make sure that we're getting the violent individuals and not wasting our time, arresting people for smaller offenses when those people are being harmed. So I urge support, I strongly support and urge the passage of 7704. And of course, not in the way that it was drafted for this legislative session, the prior legislative session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Melissa? Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Hey, good evening. I'll also try to be pretty brief. As Melissa said, I am a colleague of hers, and I keep a close eye on immunity and similar laws and bills across the country. So I'll just give you some background. This isn't any kind of new precedent if this bill were to pass. The first policy that I'm aware of was introduced by the San Francisco District Attorney and Police Departments in 2018. In 2019, California, Utah, and Oregon passed immunity bills. Last year, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Montana passed those bills, and this year we have active similar legislation being considered in New York, Colorado, Hawaii, and Tennessee, and I believe that's it. I might be missing one. So it's really common, and as you look at similar hearings in other parts of the country, either in prior legislative sessions or this year, you find a lot of widespread support from people who wouldn't be allies in other spaces outside of this bill. So you'll have trafficking advocates, service providers. You'll also have more like harm reductive organizations and a lot of law enforcement support, like Melissa alluded to, because it allows for the prioritization of crimes that are really dangerous. We also know, because they've admitted to it, tragically, serial killers have explicitly said that they target people who are involved in prostitution because they know how much more likely it is that they'll get away with it. And like infamous serial killers, Sam Little, I think Gary Ridgway said the same thing. And when we allow both trafficking survivors and sex workers an avenue to come forward and speak to law enforcement and report their experience, and many people with that experience have also testified and stated that they had either experienced or witnessed some serious violence and knew something and didn't come forward. And so that's why you have both of these not always allied parties in strong agreement of this. That's why these are really easily moving through legislatures across the country. And it would be a really excellent, straightforward policy that I think is pretty no nonsense. So I, of course, am in support of it too.
Thank you. Any questions for Rebecca? Thank you. I'll tell you, it's good legislation. It reminds me of the Good Samaritan law and related to issues involving drug use and getting people to call 911 versus taking off because they're afraid to get prosecuted. It saves lives, and this probably saved lives as well. Thank you very much. So that concludes testimony on House Bill 7704.